Building downtown.
But well, so to clarify a little bit, I think that probably we're a little more familiar with you because obviously we're talking to you and we knew who you were before we did that. So just for anybody who might be listening who maybe isn't from Toronto or doesn't follow you on Twitter, when you were skipping around a little bit, so I apologize for that. But when you're saying, you know, like when things are reported and when things happen or investigated, some of these are just general statements about the way things work. Some of them have already gotten a little more specific. So just to be clear, when you're making references right now to, I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't know I was going to be treated that way. I didn't know what would happen until I filed a complaint. Are these things that are, you notice things and we're sticking up for other people? Are these things that specifically happened to you that you reported? Like what are we talking about here?
So these were, so at different stages, I spoke to my supervisors about different issues. So the first thing that happened was in 2011. And I was pulled into a staff sergeant's office who was only there for maybe 6 months or so. And this man already had a reputation coming to the station. People knew that he was mean and everybody knew. And I was a new officer. So, not that I changed over time, but like, especially when you're new, your shoes are shiny, everything is fresh. So this staff sergeant pulls me in his office and he brought in my supervisor who was a female police sergeant. So he brought her in and I just thought that I was going to do performance review. So I sat in the office and before you know, he starts to yell at me. He was just yelling at me for things that happened 6 months ago, for one day when my name tag was upside down, just braiding me. And I just realized that moment that I'm being picked on, that this was just some kind of like he's mad at me or like he's just being a dick. So this happened. I brought it forward. I talked to the superintendent, and the superintendent was like, "Listen, I'm going to promise you, he's not going to talk to you anymore. He's going to leave you alone." Blah blah blah. So this was all brought forward by my supervisor as well, who was a female police officer. Her career got destroyed. And I saw that at a very early stage in my career. I saw how they were talking behind her back, how they were brashing and trashing her, and that really put a scare in me. So a lot of these decisions that women make is not just based on their own experiences of what's happening, but based on what they've seen and are seeing around them at work, happening to other colleagues, friends. So, so that was the first time I talked to the superintendent about that. I said, this was out of line. It was inappropriate. He never documented me for anything. He just yelled at me for 15 minutes. And then and ever since then, I was not getting any courses. I was being thrown in the back, sitting at the front, learning to answer the phones, just like low grade things that you don't really learn much as a new recruit. With a couple of years on, there's so much you need to learn. And I noticed my colleagues were all going into traffic. They were going into the Criminal Investigation Bureau. They were going all these different trainings. So in, 2014, some other incident happened with two of my colleagues. This was a really tough incident because this really changed the way I looked at my colleagues going forward. And this was one night I was going home after work and it was around 2:00 in the morning. And as I left the station, I saw one of my male colleagues who was not on my shift anymore, but was still at the station. He waved at me. I kept driving, waving back, thinking he's just saying hi. As I got on the highway, I get an unknown call. So I answered the phone thinking it's work because, we get calls all the hours. It's not normal. It's not unexpected. It's not abnormal to get a phone call at these hours. So I answered the phone and it was that colleague from across the street. His name was Ryan Kotzer. Ryan says to me, "Hey, Effy, I've had a few drinks. Can you come and give me a ride home? My car is at the station." And I was like, "Oh, absolutely. Like, no problem." I turn around, come back. And I saw that he was with another officer that I did never work with him, but he was from the same station. So I said, I'll drive him home. And Ryan says to me, "Hey, you want to come up for a quick drink, catch up or whatever?" I was like, yeah, I'm not really drinking. I had early class in the morning, and I was like, I'll just come up and shoot the shit for briefly because he wasn't on my shift anymore. I go upstairs, we sit on the balcony, and the other officer, his name was Chris Holler, he was sitting in front of me, and we were talking about a few different things, vacation, work. At the time, I was in the warrants, so we were talking about that. And he says to me, Chris Holler says to me, hey, Effy, are you going to fuck us tonight? Me and Kotzer. And I was like, what? So I got up and I was like, no. He's like, what's the matter? You don't like white guys? So the police, brain kicks in. And that's when I got up and I was like, okay, this is going to be, so I felt like, okay, I need to leave. So I got up and I'm walking towards the door. He walks beside me and he gets right in front of the door. And he said, if you don't fuck us both tonight, I'm going to tell everybody at work. And I'm in disbelief. I'm just standing there like shocked. And I'm thinking, holy shit, if I get
dragged. He's going to tell everybody at work that you did fuck them, even if you didn't, is what you mean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that was going to spread a rumor. So I was like, holy shit, if I get raped tonight, how am I going to explain why I was here? People are going to say, what the fuck were you doing at his house at 2 a.m.? Mm-hmm. So right away, people like you thinking of your victim blaming yourself. You're thinking about all the things people say.
Well, you also know how the evidence would work, right? So you're,
yeah, and all the things you hear people say about sexual assault victims, like you hear jokes at work about things. So that's what was going through my mind. And then I turned around to see if Ryan would say something because I knew him better. And he was just laughing, and he was like, "Okay, show us your tits then." And that's when I was like, "I need to get out of here."
And these are the people that are supposed to come in and protect sexual assault, rape, sexual abuse, whatever it may be, victims. They're doing this shit to their own people.
Yes. This is what was so sickening for me. I carried this for so long. I told a few of my colleagues. I mean, I was like, should I report this if I don't say something, if I say something? And then they put him in sex crimes. Chris Holler went to sex crimes, working in human trafficking. And I was sick to my stomach.
What the fuck?
This guy was working where there was going to be victims of sexual violence that are going to be drugged, that are going to be, abused. That's when I spoke to my supervisor, and my supervisor was completely cold about it. He was like, he didn't want to hear it. And, that's when I started to really feel sick. I started to feel like this is not the right environment for me.
Do you think that because I don't know how to phrase it right. Doctors grow cold to pain because they see a lot of pain. You know what I mean? And when you sit in the waiting room, grabbing to your stomach, rolling on the floor, saying I'm in pain, they have 3 people that have holes in their heads sitting behind the curtain. You know what I mean? So they see pain, so they kind of grow cold to it. So do you think that these people might turn a little twisted and a little crazy because of the shit they go through on a daily basis? And
no,
they just start acting, or do you think this is just the thing that they were, and they're just
scumbags to begin with?
Yeah.
I think there's a real issue with sexual violence here. And the issue is, why is it that it's in these types of environments? Why is it in the military? Why is it in the police? And this is
it's regimed and ordered, and officers on top of officers, you're commanding people. So it kind of, you know what I mean? When you have people under you to order around, it's a human thing to abuse power.
Yeah,
it's in human nature to abuse power, right?
I don't think it is. I think human nature is...
maybe human nature is the wrong word. Wrong
term. I get what you're saying. We see people abuse power often.
It is alluring, right? It's because it is power. Power is what do you call it?
Adrenaline rush.
Adrenaline rush. It is a drug. So making people obey and making people
be their victims.
But parents are in a position of power, and you don't have the majority of most parents abusing.
But that's what I'm saying. Are these people sick and twisted from the get-go, or is it because they go through so much shit that they just start losing their, you know what I mean?
I think that we are conditioned to think that criminals, sexual predators, are only a certain type of people. That we have thought that, we've been told that the guy who's raping you is going to jump out the bushes. Nobody tells you it's the priest. Nobody tells you it's the coach, the cop,
uncle. Yeah.
And these people are not stupid. They got into these lines of work for reasons, right? You're not a good teacher and then you become a sexual predator. You were a sexual predator and then you became a teacher.
That's a damn good point.
Right?
That is
and
a damn good point.
Cops. Listen, I've been in toxic environments where I put my head down and later I pulled the guy aside and I said, cut this shit out. But, I never went in next time and pulled somebody and treated them like that. So that environment, you can be good and go in that environment and become an enabler in a way where you're scared to speak up. You fear because you got to put a roof over your kid's head. You got to put food on the table. And so you just turn a blind eye. So you have people that do that, but they don't they don't get involved. They're good officers in a sense where they're treating people fairly. And then you got guys that are going out specifically, causing trouble, causing harm, because they know that they can hide behind a union, that it's a all boys club. And we have to understand, this isn't about so much about people, going into policing and individually doing things. This is a system that's allowing these people to behave this way, right? Police officers are one of the very few professions where if you do something that if you commit a crime, you can go suspended with pay for years, right? So, or if something happens, for example, in my case where I complained about Ryan Kotzer and Chris Holler, the police service gave them a free lawyer from taxpayers' pockets. So when you are doing...
And what about you? You're just left hung and dry? You got to get your own?
Well, I had a meeting with my lawyer and my and I filed a duty of fair representation, excuse me. Last year, I filed a duty of fair representation against my union. And what that is it basically brings them before a tribunal and you have to show your case that this has happened and the union hasn't helped me. So last week, Friday, we were in some kind of, tribunal. They wanted to get to a resolution. I said, you guys need to pay for my human rights lawyers the same way you're paying for these officers. I need equal representation. We need to be, we're paying union dues as well. So the lawyer said, no, this has never happened before. We've never had to pay for human rights lawyers. So you guys sent 10 lawyers here charging $1,100 an hour to tell me that has been paying over 10 years for union dues that I don't deserve a lawyer? Like, this is how backwards the system is.
Building downtown.